Serum 1 has been secretly hitting the gym for the last few years without us realizing, and it's transformed into this absolute beast, Serum 2. Not only that, if you already own Serum 1, you can download Serum 2 for free. Amazing. So if you've not yet downloaded it, go and download it, get it installed, and then come back. And there's even more good news. When you do open Serum here, you'll see S1 presets. So all your Serum 1 presets are still here. So if I just open one of these, your old Serum 1 presets will open in Serum 2, and then you can modify them with all the new features to make even more powerful sounds. Now, before we go over Serum 2, I've just released my new sample pack, Future Jump Up Drum and Bass, which has 170 Serum 2 presets in. Now, I haven't used much of the Serum 2 features for these presets because most of them were made before Serum 2 was released, but after you've watched this video, you'll be able to understand how Serum 2 works exactly, and then when you're doing your trial and error to come up with unique sounds from these presets, you'll be able to make some really unique and cool sounds. If you want to get this pack, it's the first link down below. Now let's get into the video. So the first thing we're going to look at is the oscillators. So you'll notice that Serum 2 is way more beefy than Serum 1, and this is because there's a third oscillator. So we've got 4 oscillators now. We've got the sub, oscillator A and oscillator B, so that was what was in the original Serum, and then we've got this 4th oscillator, oscillator C, so we can add even more layers to our bass if we want. Now obviously I don't really recommend doing this for a lot of your sounds, but there will be the odd occasion where you want to layer the sound even more. For example, what I used to do in the past was use 2 Serum 1s and then layer them on top of each other. But now that'll save the step, so you could just add the oscillator in here and have 4 layers for one bass, all within one Serum. So that's a really cool feature. And if you've ever used Vital, which you can see on the screen here, I've made a preset pack for Vital. This has 3 oscillators on it as well, but it doesn't have that sub-oscillator. So it's a bit like Vital if you're used to using Vital. So that's a cool little way of understanding it a bit better if you've used Vital in the past. You can see 1, 2, 3 oscillators. The next part is about how we use each oscillator. So now there's actually 5 different types of oscillators you can use. So if we open up Serum 1 here, you can see all we have is a Wavetable Oscillator. That's the only option, and then we can pick our wavetables here, and that's it. But with Serum 2, we can now select this wavetable here, and we can change them. So there's 5 different ones. The first we'll look at is Wavetable. So this will be the one you're all familiar with. And you've got the original Serum 1 wavetables here, and then we've got some new ones, some new Serum 2 wavetables. Now I have no idea how useful these are going to be, but it's worth experimenting with them. So we've got default shapes, and then we've got some more analog ones and some more digital ones. So this is going to be fun to experiment with. So if we just randomly pick one, and then the section below is mostly the same, but there are a couple of new things. So if we open up Serum, we can compare oscillator A and oscillator A. So the unison is now here, the detune is now here, the blend is now here, the pan is now here, and then we've got the phase, which is now here, a nice little display there, and we've got the rand, which is now here, and then the level is here, and we've got the wavetable position, which is now here. So there's 2 main differences now with this. So this section on Serum 1, where you select all these different warp options, we've now got 2 warp areas instead of 1 here, and we've got way more options. So they're all into their own little folders now, and one of the main new ones we've got is the filter. So you can actually add a low pass filter or a high pass filter on your oscillator. So let's say you want to add a high pass filter to this sound, which will remove low end. So then we can decide how much low end we want to remove, decide how steep we want the curve to be. So if we look at an EQ here on a high pass filter, that amount here will make this go like this, and then the steepness here will make it go like this. So that's more steep. And then there's other things as well you can experiment with. So we've got our FM here, and then we've got PD, AM, and RM now. So these are all different things you can experiment with. And of course we've got 3 oscillators now, so you could like send one from here to here, one from here to here, and come up with all sorts of crazy sounds. Then the other new element is on this unison, you'll notice there's this little button here, and this brings up a display for all the different unison things you can change. So it just gives you a bit more control. So this width here, originally on Serum, it was in the global setting here. So you'd put these both to 0 to get the sound in mono, and now you can just do it on here. So you can put this down to 0. If I can get it, there you go. And then it'll be a mono. And then there's all these different sections here you can experiment with as well. And then just click that to come back off it. So now let's take one of my sounds from the new Future Jump Up sample pack. And let's have a look. So we could make it a mono here. We can type the value in as well. And then we've got these 2 areas here we could have a look at. So maybe we could add a filter, a high pass filter here. You see how that's got rid of the low end? And maybe we could add a sub bass underneath it now instead. So we go to, and then come to the LFO here and attach it. And then if we go to this mix channel, which we'll come to later, set it to like direct out. And set like a low pass filter on this side. You can maybe distinguish the sounds a bit better. And there's going to be lots of these cool little tricks that you're going to be able to find with some trial and error to improve the overall sound design. There's also the Wavetable editor here. So you click on here and it opens up so you can create your own wavetables. And then you can also adjust them along here. So you can take out like the first bin here, and then you can like draw stuff on. So you can draw the wavetable if you want. You could draw like this. And then you've got lots of different options. You can also import stuff, export stuff. And there's loads of options along here to presets you can create, add in, and then you can switch between the oscillators here as well. So that's a useful setting once you want to do some more advanced synthesis. But we've got access to so many of these, and you can download the massive presets as well that often is not really needed to create your own. So now we're entering brand new territory with the second type of oscillator that you can choose. And we've created an initial patch, and now we're going to look at it. So this is multi-sample. And if you've watched my channel a lot, you'll know that to actually make high quality music, it's really important to have multi-sample. And what multi-sampler is basically a version of a Rompler synth. And a Rompler synth is something like Nexus 4, which we've got on the screen here. And this uses like real life instruments or real life samples that are imported into the synth to make an instrument. So let's say someone plays the violin on a C note, and then this gets imported as a WAV into Nexus 4, and then it gets set up in this synth, and then when you press on your keyboard, it then plays it out in the correct note of that live sample. So you get as close to a violin sound as possible. So I've always used Nexus 4 for my intros, then I've used Serum for my drops, but now potentially Serum 2 may be able to do both of these, which means we don't need Nexus 4 anymore. But whether or not it's going to do as good a job as Nexus 4 is to yet be decided, because I've not looked into it enough. So we've got these factory presets already. So let's listen to the strings, for example. So let's pick full strings. And you'll see when I click it, all different notes. So I can play here. And that actually sounds really good. You can see the waveform. So this is the actual file. So I'm pretty impressed with that so far. This is literally what Serum has been missing, because it's so good at creating basses, but when you come to create your instruments, it often sounds not the best. So having this section here is kind of game changing in my opinion for creating pads, plucks, leads, ARPs, you name it. And there is actually an ARP section, which we'll get onto later. Let's try one more before we move on. So a piano. We got a piano. That sounds pretty good as well. Nice. Now, not only are you going to want to use factory settings, but later down the line, there'll be people releasing sample packs with these things called SFV files, and you can load these SFV files in. So people will release these SFV files. There might already be some released online if you have a look. You then just drag them into your user folder here from this, and then you can load them in and get custom sounds. So that's going to be really interesting to see what people come up with. And maybe I'll have to do a sample pack myself, including some SFV files. So then you get all these different options down here as well to alter the sound even more. And these settings are pretty similar to the wavetable settings, apart from you've got this timbre setting here as well. Now the next section is a sample section. So if we go to my new sample pack and go to bass one shots and find a nice bass. So let's get this frog bass. We can then drag the file into here, and then it'll play just like that. And then we can add more layers to it. We can do whatever we want to it. And we've also got the options down here. We can reverse it. Change the length of it. We can change it from one shot to a fixed loop. Do all sorts of this really cool. And maybe you could create a new sound with it from this. So this is some really cool trial and error stuff you can do with the sounds. You could actually do this previously on Serum. So if we just go to my sample pack here, I've got a bunch of horns in here. And these are samples that I've used outside of Serum because it was really hard to create an actual horn using wavetables in Serum. So you'll see here that before we had to drag samples into the noise channel. So you can see I've got this horn here, which is a sample that I've created, put it into C and then dragged it on here. And then when you play it on the piano, it will now match up to the keyboard. So this is just basically a upgraded version of the previously difficult to use version, which gives you more control and more stuff you can do. Now I did really want to move these into this section here so you'd have more control, but unfortunately I think I've deleted all the files where I was creating them all, so I can't do that anymore, which is really annoying. But for future sample packs I'll be putting them all in here. I don't think you really need to change a horn sample anyway. A horn sample is just a horn sample. Next we have the fourth option, which is granular synthesis. Now this is again something that Serum's been missing. So granular synthesis is good for creating like atmoses, soundscapes, pads, these kind of glitch effects. The sort of stuff that this guy makes, Imanu. If you know, his music is pretty crazy, so if you've not heard it, I recommend. And again, we've got a bunch of factory stuff here we can use, and you can just drag in samples directly onto here, then come and alter them along here. But let's just look at a factory first. So what I recommend you do is just get one of these factories and then play around with all the different settings to understand what they do and learn them. And then we can also drag in some stuff. So let's grab one of my atmoses. And then suddenly you can change it into a completely different Atmos sound. Some dark Atmos. And yeah, you get the idea. This is going to be super useful. You can also layer sounds as well. So you could get like 2 different presets, layer them, create some crazy Atmos. This is going to be super helpful, beefing up your intros. What I'm going to do to start with is use the wavetable for all my basses, use the multi-sample for all the instruments in the intros, and then use sample for bringing in any instruments I like, one-shot instruments, and then granular for the kind of atmospheric sounds in the intro that are going to go underneath all my instruments from the multi-sample section. So then finally we've got our 5th type of oscillator, which is spectral. So again, we can drag in a sample for this. So let's just drag in a loop. And what spectral means is you can literally adjust what frequencies are being affected. So it's like an EQ on here. So this is the higher range, this is the low range, and I can just take out all the low range if I want. And the high range. And then you can apply some effects to it below here as well. Now I've got no idea if this is going to be useful or not, but they must have put it in for a reason, so we'll see. It's going to be good for probably experimenting again. So now we've gone through all the oscillators, let's simplify this down again and just grab one of the presets from the pack. So let's grab a stab bass. Let's grab this one. So now the next new thing we've got in Serum 2 is the filter section. So in Serum 1, all we had was one filter, as you can see here. But now we've got 2 filters. So we've got filter 1 and filter 2. And there's a bunch of really cool routing stuff you can do now, which we'll get into later on. But let's just look at what these filters can do. So if we get Serum open again, they've got the same elements in. So they've got the cutoff here, and then you've got your which ones it's going through. So A, B, C, noise here. But now you've got sub A, B, C and noise. And you've still got the piano thing here, which is the same down here. You've got the res, which is here. You've got the drive, which is here. You've got the fat, which is here. You've got the pan, which is here. And you've got the mix, which is here. You've got this new level here as well, which just changes the volume of the filter. So it's essentially pretty much all the same. But there are some new Serum 2 presets as well. So these are all from Serum 1, but you've also got these new presets that you can play around with and see if you like any of them. You see there, I've added a new one. It's already changed the sound up a bit. That sounds pretty cool. So some of them are pretty cool. And then, of course, you can turn on filter 2 as well. I think you can even route filter 1 to filter 2, but we'll get into that all in the routing section. So we're going to look at the envelope and the LFO. The envelope is super simple. You can see that it's pretty much exactly the same as Serum 1, apart from you've got a 4th envelope, and you can now switch from MS to BPM mode. So this is pretty useful if you want it to be exactly in time. And my OCD will probably be using that quite a lot, even though it might make the track sound less natural. So just be careful with that. Now there's quite a few changes in the LFO section. For starts, you can get way more LFOs. You can see there. I think before, I don't know how many you could get before. Can I do this? 5, 6, 7, 8. You could get 8 before. And I think in this new one, you can get up to 10. So let's just check. Yeah, it goes all the way up to 10. So that's one thing that's changed. The display along the bottom has also changed. So everything's just in a slightly different place, which is a little bit annoying, but you'll soon get used to it. So you can see here, BPM to Hertz is there. Before it was here. You've got the rate here to change the rate, and the triplet and the dot now here as well. So you can change it along here. And then you've got these 4 settings as well, which are along here. And then what's new, so this table here is all the same. You can still move stuff like this. You can still double click to draw stuff on. all that good stuff. But you've now got these other settings here, so you can like draw stuff like this. You could do this before, but it wasn't obvious, but now they've made it pretty obvious. And you've got this as well, if you want to do stuff like that. And then you've got all your things along here as well. You can save your own wavetables here, save shape, and give it a name, and then come back to here and go to, I was wondering where user was, but once you save your first shape, then user will appear, and then you can select your own here. You can also put it in reverse if you want. I don't know what the point in that is. Maybe there'll be some use for that. And then you can change the grids here as well. So there's an X and Y axis by the looks of things. So you can change it on the X and the Y axis, which is pretty cool. I don't believe you could do the Y axis before. I think the Y axis is up. It's been so long since I've done maths. Oh my gosh. And then the other crazy thing you can do is now, you see we're on normal at the moment, which you're going to want to use most of the time, but you can also choose path. So you can like draw this path on here, and I can draw like a triangle. It's sort of looking like it's going into some crazy 3D shape, some sort of like simulation going off here. And then you can choose these chaos settings here. Now I'm guessing this sort of stuff would be good for if you're like recording a bunch of sounds. So if you're currently recording this and then you're just messing about with stuff, and then you've got this big WAV file with all these recordings at the end, then you can like chop out cool little elements that you've created with this. This is the only thing I can think of currently why I'd use this, because it's just so chaotic, but it's worth experimenting with. But we're just gonna keep it back to the normal section for now. And then it's the same for everything else. You just drag and drop stuff on to attach it. As you can see here, these are all attached. There's also a mono button here as well. So you can set the LFO to mono. Then whilst we're here, all the other elements are the same. So this little section here with the velocity and note and the voicing, so you can put it in mono, legato. You can change the portamento here. This is all the same as Serum, and the macro section is also the same as Serum, apart from you've got twice as many macros, so 8 instead of 4. And then the pitch bend along here is also the same, and the piano is pretty much the same. But we do have this new section down here, which is the ARP section and the clip section, which we will get onto shortly. But first I want to show you the effects section. So this is the effects section, and I've put all the new effects on here for you to see. So we've got this Bode plugin, which is like a delay pitch shifter thing. And we can change this to change the pitch. And then we can like detune it with this. And get some weird sounds. And we're going to make it like wobble as well with this as well. Which might be pretty cool. Maybe that'll be quite good for respaces, you know. And then we've got this convolve, which is basically just a reverb with a load of presets. So we can go in here, factory, select all these presets. It looks like we can load in custom ones as well. So there might be some custom ones coming in at some point that people will create. And it's basically what Serum 2 has desperately needed, because the reverb here, the Serum 1 reverb, is kind of just a bit rubbish. I've never really used it in my tunes effectively. I've always used a external reverb like Valhalla Room. I love using that. It just sounds way better in my opinion. But now we've got all these different options for reverb. This might work a lot better. So we'll have to see. We can change like the size, the tone. So hopefully that's going to make some really nice sounds, because reverb always sounds great when you use it right on sounds. And then we've got this splitter effects channel you can add now for low, high, low, mid, high, mid to S. I'm not sure what S is, so I'll have a quick look. side. Okay, that's cool. And you can then essentially just put another plugin into each section of this. So we can go add here and then add another effects, or add one here. And then finally, the other one we've got is a utility. So you can, for example, put the low end completely in mono here, which is pretty useful. And then you can do some other bits and bobs here. So with all these removed, it looks something like this. And we've got main along here and then bus 1 and bus 2. Now this is to do with the routing, so we'll come back to that later. And then to add stuff, you just got to now add it in manually one by one, which is a little bit slower in my opinion to what it was before, but it does give some really good new stuff we can do. And one of those things is we can now stack. So I can stack as many distortions as I want on top of each other, which is pretty mad. So no longer does OTT have to take up every single channel on your plugin rack. You can now just do it inside Serum. I don't think they've added OTT into this. I guess it kind of is the compressor. Yeah, it's basically the compressor with the multiband along here. So on top of this now, you can also save a bunch of plugins. So along here, we've got custom, factory, and these are all the ones they've created for us. So if we just load one in, you'll see it's given us this. And then so if we go back to a preset, we'll just bring up a stab bass again, and then if we go to the effects tab here, you can see I've got these effects applied, and if we want, we can save this now as a custom rack. So I could call it like stab bass 1, something like that. And then if we create a new bass, so if we like initialize a patch, and then we've got this bass here, just quickly turn it into a stab bass, select envelope mode here, and then we come to the effects tab, and we want to load in that file we made. Come here. Cool, we got a pretty cool sounding bass there, and then and suddenly we've made a sound in like 2 seconds. That's a really cool feature. If you've got some of my sample packs, you'll know that I've got my own post-processing chains. For example, you can see here I've got some post-processing channels that you can literally just drag in from the future jump up sample pack, and you just load them in like that. So this is like similar to that. So that will speed up your workflow a lot. And hopefully that'll become more important than just being able to like click them in, which I think was really fast, but we'll see. So now let's look at routing. So we did mention many times throughout that we're going to go to routing later on, and this is the time for it. So you can route everything along the top row here. So from the sub, all the oscillators, the noise, and the effects. And to do this, there's a little shortcut at the top of each one, and it's here. So here, 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 and here. And then if you want to look at it in more detail, you can go to this mix tab here, and then it basically opens these up to here. So you can see oscillator A, we've got the filter, and you can choose the filter, and then you can choose where it's getting sent to, and if it's getting sent to any buses. And then here, it's got the same thing. So you can choose it where it's getting sent to any of the buses. But then you've also got a pan setting and a volume setting. So you can adjust the volume as well on here. So let's stay on this tab now. So all of these here equate to all of these here. And then you've also got some additional ones showing here, which is bus 1, bus 2, main, and direct. So bus 1 and bus 2 relate to the effects tab. So before I just showed you putting effects on the main channel, which is here, but you can also put them on bus 1 and bus 2. And the reason for this is you could send, for example, oscillator A to bus 1 and apply effects to it, and then oscillator B you could just send through the main, and none of the effects would apply to oscillator B, meaning that you can have more control over the sound you want to create. So now let's just look at oscillator A, and let's look at what we can actually do. So when a sound is first initialized, oscillator A is automatically getting sent to the filter, but the filter is currently turned off, so technically it's just going straight to main, and main is just output. But if we turn the filter on, now suddenly it's being filtered. But if we don't want that, we can just change this to main, and now it's not going through the filter anymore. We can also send it to direct. So this just means it bypasses the main completely and gets sent straight to out. So if there's any effects on the main channel, it won't apply to this. It'll just get sent straight out. So let me show you what I mean. We put a distortion on here, put a chorus on here, you can see nothing is happening. If we put it back to main, suddenly those effects are changing it. And why would you want direct out? Sometimes it's useful for sub basses if you don't want the sub bass to have a load of effects on it. And then just for like trial and error sound design, I guess, you can just test it out, see if it improves the sound. And then the last one we have is none. I'm not sure why you'd use this, because it's just not going to send an output out at all. You may as well just turn it off, but I guess it's there just for the sake of control. So now we've looked at this section, let's look at this section below. So currently, when this is all the way to this side, it's just getting sent to filter 1, but say we create oscillator B, and this is going to a filter as well. We don't want this to go through filter 1, we want it to go through filter 2. We can move it all the way around to here, and now this one is getting sent to filter 2. So we've got A going to filter 1, B going to filter 2. What happens if we want to use both filters on the same oscillator? Then we can simply put it in the middle here. Now it's equally getting sent to both oscillators. You can see. Now this could be used for some very complicated sound design. Interested to see if this creates good results or not. It might be going a bit too far, but we'll see. And then in terms of these buses, so no matter what happens, your oscillator A is always going to get sent to the main effects channel, unless you're using direct out. So if you were to apply bus 1, now your oscillator A is getting sent to main and to bus 1. So you could apply some sort of processing to this bus 1. So let's just add some distortion. You can see that's being applied. And then if we were to do something on the main channel, you'll see it also affects the same thing. So let's just put chorus on. So you can see this sample is getting affected by both. So what my thinking here is, if you've got two oscillators playing, move this down one, and you want the main effects on this. So let's say you want main like a compressor and some distortion on both of them combined. And then you only want some like chorus, for example, on oscillator B. So you could then turn this up, add chorus to this channel. Now it's only adding chorus to this and not to this one. So it just gives you a bit more control. And then if you had like an oscillator C, you only want to send this one to bus 2, and then you can apply some more settings, and then it, so for example, flanger, and it only gets, only this one is getting sent there. But all three of them are still getting sent to main. That's the most important thing you need to know. You see? They're getting sent to main. Getting sent to main, getting sent to main. Sending it to a bus just means it goes to main and that bus. So then if we go back to the filter channel, we can also still apply all these settings along here. We want the filter to go through all of them. So that setting's still there, and that keyboard setting is still there as well. So you can also do something really cool. You could actually send filter 1 to filter 2 and filter 2 to filter 1, but you can't have an endless loop going. It changes it if you try to do both. So you could get some really cool things going by sending like an oscillator to filter 1, then to filter 2, and then to the effects or whatever. And the order it's in is the order stuff is getting sent to. So this is going to the filter, then it's going to the effects, then it's going to out here. And you can also do the same with the buses. So you could send bus 1 to bus 2 and bus 2 to bus 1 if you really wanted to. Again, that's just kind of overcomplicating it a little bit, not really necessary, but the option's there. And then you can't do anything with the main effects because everything is getting sent there in the end, unless it's on direct out, like we mentioned. So what I recommend you do is just have a play around with these. Go through each setting, figure out the order. So this section, then this section, then this section. Have a look at these buses as well. Just make sure you fully understand it, because it did take me a few minutes to figure it all out. So next we have the little bit down here that's hiding at the bottom. So we've got clip, then ARP, and then we've got this section above the keyboard where we can select the key. So let's go to the clip here. And this opens up an entire piano roll, and it's essentially pretty similar to the FL Studio one. You'll see here, you've got all the notes here, then you can choose the key in the view section, the scale highlighting, and you can do the same here. So you can choose the notes here, you can shorten it down if you want and loop it, and then you can choose the key down here. So you can see I can select F, and then I can go to minor, and then suddenly we can add notes by just clicking and dragging, and we can create our own little patterns. Now, I don't really see much use in doing this, but there is one really cool use that you're going to get from using presets that I'm going to show you now. So if we go to the factory presets, and we get like a piano here, you can see here that whoever created this preset has created a little melody. or chord progression, and then we can play it here. So in the future, when you download presets and you come to the clip along here, there might be chord progressions that you can try that are already created for you that can give you ideas and inspire you. If you have like a bass, there might be some like bass patterns that have already been created that can help inspire you. And if you like them, you can literally just drag them in like this. And then if we play this, we've got a cool melody. So that's what I think the main use is going to be. But of course, you can have a look into this and use it as your piano roll if you really like. And then there's also these banks along here. So you could create a bunch of chords, save them in these banks, and then load them in on different presets. So let's just have a look here at the... So we could do this, and now suddenly press play with this. Or we go here. So I actually think once you build up a good library in your bank and you create your own, it might be actually very useful to use this section for brainstorming ideas. So for your genre of music, you could grab a load of different chord progressions, save them all here, and then load up a preset you like and go through all of them and see which one sounds best, and then simply drag it in. Another cool thing you can do, so if we go to my Serum preset pack and we grab in, say, a respace, we can actually drag in the MIDI here as well. So you've got the global setting and then you've got the clip setting here. So this is just more things. And if you have any of my sample packs, you know I've got quite a lot of MIDI files in them. So let's drag in one of these bass loops. Now suddenly we've got this MIDI loop in here and we can mess around with ideas. Now these are bass loops. That's pretty cool. And yeah, you can then create stuff through that way. I don't know if you can drag and drop stuff in. Let me see. Oh, you can also just drag and drop the MIDI file straight in, which is really cool. So if you've got a lot of MIDI files, then this could be really good for just brainstorming ideas, just dragging them in, listening to it, and keep on going until you find something that's good. Now there's also an ARP section at the bottom here. So let's find a lead. Find a lead like that, and we'll just take the reverb off and the delay, and let's turn it on. So you turn it on at the bottom here, and then let's open it up, and now if we just press play, you're going to suddenly hear an ARP style. We can change the rate here. And then there's a load of different settings you can explore with. So you just hover over it and it'll tell you what each thing does. So we can bring in presets again, and then it'll bring up a load of things along the bottom here, like for the piano. But the main thing I want to show you is this setting here. Let me just take you to the pattern section. So this is where you can experiment really easily with ARPs without having to just slowly create them on the piano roll. So let's just make this a bit shorter here. And then if we start on 0, you can see the numbers along here. This is the order which they will play in. So the 0 means the first note you play on the keyboard, it will assign to that. 1 is the second note you play, and then 3 is the third note you play. So let's just play. So I'm just pressing 3 notes on the keyboard there and it's playing them in order. So let's just speed it up a little bit. And also at the bottom here, let's pick a key. So let's try F minor. So let's select F as our first note. And no matter what notes we play, it will always go into the key of F minor. So what I'm doing there is holding down 3 notes on a keyboard, and then it's playing them in order of the notes I'm holding from bottom to top. So F, G sharp, D. And then you can just mess about with different ideas, change the key, and then if you like it, you can then go onto your piano roll and create it. There's also different things you can do on the bottom here, so you can add like types of notes, and do here as well. And then you can also record it, so you can come down to the bottom here and record it out by pressing record up here and then selecting how you want to record it out, and you can save it as like an audio file. Just have to experiment with that. Personally, I'd just like to recreate it on here again later, just because I like to keep my projects organized and know what's going on. But there is so much you can do on here and just so much crazy stuff. And we always like a good ARP in drum and bass especially. They sound really nice. So that is the video complete. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. Make sure to subscribe as well. We're going to be making so many more videos on Serum 2 in the future, making some really cool basses, some really cool instruments. I'm really looking forward to that. And if you want to get the future jump up sample pack and get cracking on those 170 Serum presets, as well as all the samples and projects inside, then it's the first link down below. There's also my music production academy you can join. That's down below as well if you want to find out more information on that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.